All right. Good morning and welcome to the NuSpecies Live Q&A. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Aston. Good morning.
All right. If you are here and watching, please say good morning to us in the chat. And in the meantime, any of those of you who are new, NuSpecies is a natural health company. We empower our clients to live better and longer. That is our mission. We do this through the unique formulas that Aston invented many years ago. These are raw plant-based supplements and herbal medicine that are all designed to help your body be resilient against the toughest of health challenges. As we all know, no matter how healthy we are or that we think we are or we're trying to be, there will always be challenges, just because they are, but also because as time goes on, there's different phases of our life where we need different things. And it's an ever evolving journey. Yeah. And so, but what makes a good health choice for you may not be the same thing for somebody else. And that's why we host this Q&A on every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to get you the answers to your questions so that you can continue on your own unique health journey. So thank you so much for being with us today. If you're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, we're happy to have you. We do have some pre-submitted questions today, so we will jump into those while we wait for all of you guys to continue to post in the chat. You can ask your questions, you can make your comments, any health concerns that you have going on. Aston's over there in Bronxville, so
You can see I'm in the store here. They see the products behind me.
Very nice.
So come on over if you want to chat, if you have questions. This month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, at least nationally in the United States, at least. And like the ladies, if you have breast issues, breast lumps, you have breast cysts, fibrocystic breast issues, you have hormonal issues, fibroids, ovarian cysts, dense breast, I would like you to speak with me and get some understanding of what's going on with you, get some feedback from us as to what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat. And especially if you have a family history, your mother, your grandmother, on any significant family member, sister. I spoke with a lady last week. Her mother died of breast cancer, grandmother died of breast cancer, her two sisters died of breast cancer, and she has dense breasts. And she feels certain that she's going to get breast cancer. So any of you who fall in those categories, you do not have to die of breast cancer. Trust us. You may have to do a little extra work with your health and your diet and your lifestyle, but you don't have to. Just do what we ask you to do, and you can live your long, full life. So our family members or friends who are situated with these issues, ask them to join our stream, and especially this month, and get some education, and if you have questions, don't hold back. Please don't hold back with your questions. You may be helping others by asking your questions.
So Aston and I've been watching the news a little bit more. I'm sure a lot of people are because of election season, but I was watching like a mainstream news outlet. I think it was like ABC or CBS, and the surgeon, I don't know if she's an oncologist and a surgeon, but she deals with women's health. And she was the surgeon who did the double mastectomy for Angelina Jolie when she found out that she had the BRCA gene for breast cancer. And so the journalist asked her, what are your top 4 tips for breast cancer prevention? And I was shocked to hear her list. Her number 1 tip was eating a plant-based diet, which you never hear from doctors, surgeons, even when they're talking about cancer. It's I was just really happy to see. She said a whole food plant-based diet, which was incredible because, as you know, we use plants as medicine for our formulas, and we know the power of plants. But it's usually hard to get a doctor to say that in a mainstream outlet. It was really impressive. I want to try to go back and find the interview, and I'll post it on our blog or reshare it on social at some point. But thought that was pretty critical.
Right. And for those of you who don't know what the BRCA gene is, it's a gene. Men have it too, but it's mostly affect women. It's a gene out of the many thousands of genes that each human being has, but let's say each woman has many thousands of genes. This one gene helped to suppress the formation of cancer in the body, especially in the breast. So it's a suppressor gene, and when it mutates or it changes its function or it's not healthy, what happens is that that person, that woman, since we're talking about the ladies, they are no more likely to get breast cancer because that gene is a suppressor gene. Suppresses the formation of cancer in the human body, in this case, in a woman's body. And all the more reasons for you to be thinking, all of you, men and women, what should you be doing with your health? Because it's not just breast cancer, it's ovarian cancer, it's thyroid cancer, it's uterine endometrial cancer, it's other cancers, liver, pancreatic, lung cancers. So you need to speak with us so we can teach you or help you to understand why it's so important that your genes are healthy. And as I mentioned over the last few streams, that was one of the main reasons I've been inventing the NuGenesis formula to help to rebuild genes and DNA. Helps the body to purify, rebuild genes and DNA. And it's not just to help the body with cancer, but it's to help the body with all diseases. Officially in the United States, there are about 18,000 identified diseases, and the list is growing rapidly. And it will continue to grow rapidly, especially with global climate change. So please ask away your questions if you have any. And thank you for sharing that news item, Joe.
Yeah, of course. I just shared a link to NuGenesis on our website. I want to say that because NuGenesis, like the God formulas, is one of our proprietary formulas, it isn't really supposed to be sold on our website just because our credit card processors find that to be high risk for chargebacks, which they don't like. And so they will typically like shut down our credit card processing if they find any products they take issue with on any website. So we really shouldn't have it up there. I've actually been having a technical issue and I can't get it to come down. So in the meantime, it is up there and you can order it on our website for right now. Once you see it no longer on our site, it doesn't mean it's sold out or unavailable. It just means you have to call to order or go to a store. All right, we have some pre-submitted questions, so we're going to hop into those. For those of you who don't know, if you go to the NuSpecies app, on the homepage of the app, if you scroll down, you'll find a form where you can submit your questions in advance. Because, you could be walking into work, quickly use the bathroom before you start your day, and you're like, oh, I wanted to ask about the so-and-so. And so you could just quickly go to the app and submit the question rather than forgetting it by the time you get to the Q&A. Because often a lot of you get warmed up too late into the show and then we can't get to all your questions. So I do have 3 questions that have been submitted through the app. So the first question is from Everaldo. He's asking about his PSA. He said that it's currently 4.9 and he's about to get a biopsy in 2 weeks. And he wants to know, should he put off the biopsy and just start NuSpecies first?
So that's a wonderful question because it has 2 sides. One side is a lot of men who come to us with PSA over 4, or even if the PSA is below 4, and they're concerned that they might have prostate cancer or cancer cells in their prostate. The question they ask me, should I go on NuSpecies for 2 or 3 months or longer and see what happens, and then do it, and then find out from my urologist if you need to do the biopsy. if the PSA goes down, right? Because that's the whole point. If the PSA goes down, there's a less likelihood of cancer in the prostate. So the answer is it's up to you. What we generally recommend, what I generally recommend at NuSpecies is that if your PSA is a little above 4, yours is just 4 plus, is to do an MRI first, because a biopsy is very intrusive. They're actually just going to go into your body and clip out 12 to 15, some men 18 samples of the prostate, and it's a very extremely painful procedure. But it's the only way to definitively say that whether someone has cancer or not is to do a biopsy. So you could do an MRI since the PSA is not very high. It's just just 0.9 high above what it should be, and you can go on NuSpecies for 2 to 3 months. But if you decide to do that, you have to do what we ask you to do. You have to take what we ask you to take. You must take what we ask you to take, because our number one role here is to help people to live better and longer. And we don't take chances, we don't take risks. So if we ask you to do something, you must do it. Put in a package, you must take it for 2 to 3 months consecutively. And then at the end of the 2 to 3 months, you must have your PSA done again. So you have to schedule your PSA ahead of time. On the other hand, you could just go ahead and do the biopsy. Even if the PSA, is 4.9 and there's no cancer found by the biopsy, you still have to go on the program we recommend anyway, because you could do the biopsy today and they find no cancer, but in 3 months or 6 months, you could get cancer in the prostate. Because as long as the PSA is high, what it means is that there's an infection in the prostate. There's chronic inflammation in the prostate. Genes are mutated in the prostate. And that's what all the men out there need to understand. If PSA is over 1, there's an infection or inflammation in the prostate. Genes and cells are mutating, damage in the prostate. And once they mutate, they can turn to cancer anytime. There's no doctor, no scientist, no physicist, no group of scientists on the planet who can tell you that it will turn to cancer in 6 months or it won't turn to cancer in 6 months. No one can know that, because science is not yet that advanced. All right?
Yeah, I would add on to that, like Aston, like you said, it's up to him. And some of the things he could consider as well is, there are some people who just want all the information and they want to do everything that they can. So they'll start taking NuSpecies. Like it's not an or question. You don't have to choose between medical care and NuSpecies. We're not an alternative, as much as I believe our formulas are a necessity. They are inevitable. At some point, I mean, as long as we are human and we are alive, we need raw, powerful nutrition in our bodies on a daily basis. And most of the time, we're not getting that from our food, whether because we're not eating the healthy food or because we're eating the best that we can. But modern agriculture, as you know, definitely leaves our foods a bit depleted. Not to say that we shouldn't then eat as healthy as we can, because we still should. It's still the best option we have. But we also need powerful supplements. So if you're someone who is looking to get your body to rebuild itself, I would say you should be on NuSpecies anyway. And then whether or not you get the biopsy is up to like what kind of person you are. So if you're the kind of person who really likes to pursue every option you have and get all the information, then you can get a biopsy. Certainly talk with your doctor about side effects, recovery, potential risks of doing the procedure, so you are completely informed before you go about that. The other thing is there are some people who know themselves, and they know that no matter what ends up happening with the test result, that they're not going to pursue certain types of medical treatment. So if it is cancer, well, what are those treatment options? Are those treatment options that they're going to even pursue? Some people know that they're not. And so for them, what's the point of getting the test? So those are things to consider. And then lastly is the way the medical system works. So this is what I would call medical prison, which is if you choose not to do the biopsy, which is what your doctor's recommending. Let's say you take NuSpecies, and let's say NuSpecies helps your body rebuild, but you didn't do the biopsy. So now, is your urologist going to say, well, you didn't do what I recommended, so we're not going to do another, like you've been on NuSpecies for 3 months, you want to get another PSA test to see if it's gone down, but maybe they're like, you're not due for another one, and you didn't do the biopsy, so we're going to wait 6 months. So if you don't have a doctor who's on board with you trying to rebuild your health naturally, you may interrupt the process that allows them to get insurance to cover all this testing. And then when you want to check in to see if what you're doing is working, they may not provide the testing that you want. So sometimes we get stuck in medical prison where we have to follow what the doctor's saying if we even want to see if NuSpecies is working. So there's all those things to consider when you make that decision. Aston, would you agree or adjust anything that I just said?
I agree. I think what all of you who are similarly situated, whether it's prostate or other issues you have, and you're not going to do precisely what your doctor has recommended that you should do, you have to justify your doctor why you're not going to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to pee your doctor off, and you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is tell your doctor what you're doing, people. Tell your doctor that you're going to change your diet, you're going to change your lifestyle, you're going to get a little exercise in, and you're going to take NuSpecies, and bring the bottles to the doctors. I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, the doctor's not going to agree that I should take NuSpecies. So who cares? Still take them to the doctor and show the doctor that you're not dumb and stupid. You're not dumb and stupid. You're doing other things to fix your health. The bottom line is that the doctors know that even with the biopsy, let's say it's positive, and you do surgery, or you do radiation, or you do chemotherapy, the doctors know there's no guarantee that your cancer is going to go away. There's none. There's absolutely none. That's why people still die of cancer in droves every day. So, but the doctor does know that if you change your diet and change your lifestyle and get a really good supplement to take to build up your body and purify your body, every doctor knows that you're going to be better off in the end by doing that anyway. And they will support that. So if you're going to refuse to do what the doctor asks you to do, tell the doctor why. Show the doctor why. And say, doctor, I'm not refusing. I'm just going to take 2 or 3 months or 6 months and change my diet, change my lifestyle, live a certain way to improve my health and improve my body. I can't imagine any doctor who would disagree with that. Especially in this case, your PSA is just 0.9 about what it should be. And I can tell you that most doctors in America and in Canada and Great Britain would not recommend a biopsy if your PSA is 4.9. They would tell you they're going to monitor and watch it for 6 months or a year, and some may propose to do an MRI. So doctors are not jumping to do biopsies the way they used to, because they're realizing that biopsies can be counterproductive, especially if the PSA is this low. 4.9 is high, but it's not very high. The logic here is that I think a lot of doctors are encountering, based on my experience, everything I'm saying to you all now is from what I know. I'm not making stuff up. I don't make stuff up. The doctors know that if your PSA is that low, let's say it's 4.9, the doctors know that even if there is some cancer in the prostate, it is not that bad, and maybe the body can fight it off. But if there's cancer, it could be low grade. So a lot of doctors are not willing to do biopsies to cut into something that may be low grade and release, let's say there are low grade cancer cells in the prostate, they could release that into the bloodstream, and now the person has a problem. They didn't have a problem before. Let's say the cancer was localized in that one tumor or lesion. The immune system is what localized it. The immune system, like, just think of some really bad dogs, some Doberman dogs, very bad dogs. They just corner the cancer cells, and they don't allow it to get out of the little pocket. That's kind of how our bodies work, people. So, and you do a biopsy, you cut into a blood vessel, and now what was cornered by the body, what was contained by the body, could potentially get released into the bloodstream. And once the cancer cells are in the bloodstream, they can get anywhere. And that's why you always hear people say, I had cancer, did surgery, did radiation, did all this stuff. It was it went away, or it was dormant, and there was no signs of it in the PET scan or CT scan. And then it came back with a vengeance. It never left, people. It never left. It was still in the body. It just wasn't detectable. I know that's a long, highfalutin answer, but I hope you can pick some sense out of it.
So no, it makes perfect sense. I think what about when you say how, especially for Black men, if their PSA is 1 or 2, that could more likely be a dangerous sign than the standard 4, and could his doctor potentially be hip to that information, and that's why they're recommending a biopsy now?
So that is a great, great question. That's a great question. A great, great question. It is because a lot of Black men are getting prostate cancer even when their PSA is below 2 or above 1. So we don't know whether when the PSA is below 4, if there's cancer in the prostate. And that's why I have recommended, and I'm going to recommend it again, and maybe something I should keep preaching from my pulpit, the NuSpecies pulpit I have, that every Black man with PSA over 1, they should do an MRI. And the MRI will say whether there is a likelihood of cancer or no likelihood of cancer. And then if it says there's a likelihood of cancer, that's when you do the biopsy, even if the PSA is below 4. Because if there's cancer, if the MRI said there's cancer, the doctors, before they do surgery or radiation, because those are extraordinary treatments. Those are extraordinary. Those are treatments that the doctors employ for life-saving situations, surgery or radiation or chemo when there's cancer. So if the doctors, find cancer and your PSA is below 4, then, most likely they're going to do surgery or radiation, because you don't want to have cancer and walking around with it in your body, and it's there. So you do the MRI. If the PSA is over 1 or below 4, do the MRI, guys, especially Black men. I haven't encountered many white men with PSA below 4 and there's cancer, unless it's recurrent cancer. So if the PSA is over 1, below 4, which means it's in the normal range, do a biopsy. Every Black man on planet Earth should do a biopsy. Do an MRI. And then if there's cancer, you do the biopsy. So you do an MRI if it's between 1, the PSA is between 1 and 4, which is the normal medical range. Do an MRI to verify that there is no cancer. Because to your point, no, Joe, your point is, what if someone's PSA was 1.1 and there was cancer, but that person didn't know? And 4 years later, 5 years later, the PSA is now 4.9. So that cancer could be sitting there for several years, people. And I have seen that a lot with Black men. I've seen it a lot. And a lot of those Black men who had the cancer there for at least a few years, now the cancer is stage 2, 3, or 4. It's spreading. By the time the PSA got to 4, the cancer had started spreading into the body, into the spine and the lung. Those are the 2 first places prostate cancer typically go to from the prostate, to the spine or the lung. So any man out there, Black men especially, white and Black, but all men, but especially Black men, if you think you have prostate cancer and you have back pain, you should go to the doctor, do an MRI, and do a CT immediately. If you have prostate issues and you have breathing issues, go to your doctor, do a PET scan or a CT and an MRI immediately. So to Jillian's point, and maybe we should label it Jillian's point or Jillian's question, meaning that cancer could be in the prostate in the normal range of 0 to 4 for years before the PSA actually goes below 4. And for that man, as I have seen, for a lot of those men, the cancer had moved from stage 1 to stage 2, 3, or 4. Mm-hmm. And I have men even in their 40s at NuSpecies who are helping now to fight this issue. All right.
So Everaldo, if you did already have that MRI, they do see that cancer is there, and now they believe there's a likelihood cancer's there, and now they're recommending the biopsy. It sounds like you should definitely proceed with that. But again, it's not an either or situation with NuSpecies. Your body always needs nutrition, so you should be doing that anyway.
Right. So if you did the MRI and it shows that there's a likelihood of cancer, and the doctor is just doing the biopsy, they're doing the biopsy now to determine surgery, radiation, or chemo.
Right.
That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So there must be a treatment plan. The doctor will have a treatment plan if cancer was previously identified, and they're just doing the biopsy to verify. So if they do a biopsy to verify, all they're doing is covering their butts so you don't sue them. They want the absolute confirmation, because MRI is not an absolute confirmation of cancer. It's a likely indication of cancer. It's not an absolute. The biopsy is what the medical system in the United States use as the absolute of cancer.
Right.
Right?
Okay. Margaret, you're not going to like the answer, my dear. Margaret's asking, which salt is best to use? Celtic, Himalayan, or sea salt with or without iodine? I think we can sort of cut the legs off of all these options and just say that you generally don't recommend salt at all as a healthy part of a diet.
So all salt, people, my friends, my NuSpecies family, all salt is NaCl, is sodium chloride. Sodium chloride. That's all that salt is. What is Himalayan, or whatever salt it is.
NaCl?
It's not a food. And NaCl. It's not a food. It's not a nutrient. It's a poison. Whatever salt it is. They're all salt are the same formula. They're the same formula is sodium chloride. Sodium chloride. So, but if you must use salt, I don't have a recommendation of any salt, because to me, based on the formula, they're all the same.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things.
Same thing with sugar. Same thing with sugar.
As little as possible. Yeah.
Sugar is the same formula. Same formula. When I say formula, by the way, what I mean, I'm talking chemistry now. It's the same chemical structure. But if it's salt that's made in a lab, it's even worse, because now it's not even a chemical structure. It's a compound structure. So the salt that's made in the lab, that is the salt that you should absolutely be frightened of using. And the question back to all of you, how do you even know what salt you're
right? I was gonna say, how do you know?
Whether it was made in a lab. How do you know?
Yeah. Maybe if it's like, Himalayan, or like the salt where you can clearly tell it's been like chipped off a block or something. But even then, the idea is just to minimize salt. Margaret, she's saying what to use instead of salt, but this is a struggle for all of us. But a lot of natural foods, plants have natural salt content. And if we weren't adding salt to our food, slowly over time, our taste buds would become very sensitive to the naturally occurring salt. And we would actually enjoy our food without adding salt. But that does take some time. So if you do still need to add salt, I wouldn't stress too much about what kind. I would just use as little as possible and try to wean yourself off of it the best that you can. And knowing that when you're eating processed foods, maybe that's where Aston, that lab-made salt is most likely in processed foods, and the salt content is off the charts on bagged, boxed, canned, processed foods. And that's really the biggest danger most of us have with salt in our life. So even if you're just removing processed food from your diet, you're achieving like 20 separate health goals all at once. And then I think the salt you're adding to like your vegetable, stir fry or curry or whatever is going to be less consequential. So I would do an audit of your processed food intake to deal with the salt intake issue first before you get too hard on yourself about added salt. Unless you know you're the person who is just dousing your food with salt every time you eat, then I would really try to cut back on that as quickly as possible. All right.
So the follow-up question was, what can be used instead of
Then,
salt? So what you all can do, you can use seasoning that naturally has salt. Like you could use extra garlic, or those type of ginger. Those type of foods, scallion, onions. They have extra sodium, so you can use extra amount of those if you can tolerate. Just use a large amount of it in your cooking, and then your body will use. Those don't have salt. Let's make it clear. Those foods I just mentioned don't have salt. What they do have is they have high amounts of sodium, and they have high amounts of chloride. So when you eat those, our bodies are probably the most extraordinary laboratory, on the planet. When I say our bodies, I mean living creatures, whether we're plants or animals. So what our bodies are going to do, if you look at the chemistry panel or the metabolic panel of your lab reports, which is the most essential part of any lab report, you see chloride there, you see sodium there. So our bodies naturally make sodium and chloride. So if you're consuming all these foods, all these whole foods, your body will naturally expunge any excesses from these seasoning. And that is the key, talking about using whole foods. When you eat whole foods, any excesses, the liver, the pancreas, the thyroid will produce the hormones to tell the body, to give the body direction with the enzymes, so to expunge any excesses. So that's what you can do. You can eat extra, you can use extra of these foods, to cook. And I do that. And for me, it tastes a whole lot better anyway when I do that. Extra onion, scallion, all this stuff. I use a lot of that when I do cook, which is maybe twice a year, once a couple of years.
All right. And I'm sure we could get a lot of other tips and things along those lines. When you start exploring a whole food plant-based diet, a lot of these recipes will start to include a much larger diversity of herbs and spices in the preparation of the food that does largely start to replace the need for the salt flavor, because you have so many other flavors just coming from those plants.
Right.
All right. Next question. So Andrea question. How do you measure inflammation reduction in the body? I thought when she asked that, she specifically knew about like a blood test, but then she went on to say, is it lack of pain in the body? So she's saying like, how can I tell how I feel if my inflammation has gone down? But there is also a test, right, Aston?
Right. So there are medical exams that you can do, but I don't think that's what Andrea is pointing to. But for the medical exam, they would check for your ESR, which is sedimentation during chronic inflammation, your C-reactive protein, that's another one, your NIAN, the specific gravity in the urine, the epithelial in the urine. So they have medical exams that they use to determine the levels of the chronic inflammation. But the easiest way for all of us to determine whether we have too much inflammation, let's say it's not at the medical level where it's causing cancer. That's what causes all diseases are inflammation. Blood pressure, diabetes, cancers, they're all caused from chronic inflammation. But let's say you haven't risen to that level. If you want to know whether or not you have inflammation building up in your body, it's when you're tired, you have no energy. Your mind is foggy. What does it mean? Simple. What it means is that the blood volume doesn't have adequate amount of oxygen. It has too much debris in there. It probably has too much urinary particles in there, which is inflammation. It has too much inflammation in there. So the more inflammation that's in the bloodstream, the inflammation, which is acidic, it will displace and destroy or remove oxygen. And so we have less energy. So a lot of you now who are taking NuSpecies, you would tell me about all the energy you have, especially those of you who are on New Genesis. A gentleman was here this week in Bronxville. He had stage 4 cancer. Now he's cancer free, thank God. And he was telling me the amount of energy he and his wife he's getting from New Genesis. He just has a lot of energy. It's because when you remove inflammation from your body, from your bloodstream, you're going to have the right level of oxygen to create energy. Our bodies use oxygen in the mitochondria to create energy. And that's the easiest way I can think of for you to know whether or not you have small amount of inflammation is inflammation, energy. You have a lot of great energy, you probably have less inflammation flowing in the body because you're having the energy only because your oxygen saturation is pretty high. It's pretty good. And the cells are getting the oxygen. The cells are what create energy. All the cells, over 80 trillion for any average adult. So the cells are creating energy because the cells are getting adequate oxygen.
That's a very, I wouldn't have thought of that answer. That's a great answer, Austin. And I'll just say, Andrea, inflammation is a really, 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 really vague term, and it can mean so many different things depending on where the inflammation is, what is causing it. There's inflammation that is healing, there's inflammation that is damaging. So when you say, is it lack of pain in the body, then that would indicate that potentially there's a kind of inflammation that you're particularly concerned about. And so that could be one sign. Like if you had an injury and it was inflamed and then the inflammation went down or you had less pain, then you would know inflammation is getting better, right? So it is a complicated question that if you have something more specific you're thinking of, maybe having a consultation would be best. All right. And then Andrea just mentioned that she didn't get to you for her appointment yet. You didn't get to her for her appointment yesterday. So Austin,
I'm going to try to get to you today, Andrea. I have a bunch of people that I have to get back to today from yesterday.
Darnett says, good morning. It was good seeing you last week. So Darnett did make, as Austin said, got her butt over to Bronxville. So that was very great.
Darnett was here and I beat her up a little bit. But it was when I beat up my clients, it's always it's a kind of family beat up. It's a good beat up. It's love, beat up with love. I have a love stick over here. Bam, bam, all love.
All right. This was a good one, a pre-submitted question. So what do we recommend for aiding digestion to avoid gassiness after eating a meal that's rich in beans, broccoli, cauliflower, lentils? So this is a great question because, and I recently was learning more about this from Dr. Will Bolshevik. I can't say his name, and oh my gosh, I got to get better at that. But he explains that the reason that we have gassiness after eating certain foods is because we have not yet allowed the healthy gut microbes that digest that food for us to propagate. So the more that we eat those foods, the more we are feeding those particular bacteria, and then we will be able to digest them without gassiness over time. What he does recommend is to, if it's not a regular part of your diet or you're having a lot of gassiness, to cut down on how much you're eating of it and just like eat smaller amounts so that your body has time, your gut microbes have time to produce. And then as you increase, so will the volume of those microbes, and so will your ability to be able to eat those foods without getting gassy. But it is definitely worth the effort because those foods are incredibly empowering, life-giving foods, and we need to develop the gut microbes to break them down. So the common phrase we've always heard is you are what you eat, but you actually are what your microbes eat. So if you're eating a lot of food without fiber, like meat and dairy products, you're going to produce the kinds of bacteria in your gut that like those products. And those are typically considered pathogens like E. coli and other sort of damaging bacteria. The more plants that you eat, which have a lot of fiber, the more healthy gut microbes you're going to develop. And that sometimes, if you're making that transition, can be an uncomfortable process, but it's worth persevering through because you will eventually develop the gut microbes you need to comfortably digest the food, the healthy plant-based foods. So that's the answer to that question. And then our last, oh, and then Andrea was just suggesting like add ginger to whatever you can. You'll have less gas. And ginger is just another amazing plant that we should be adding to our foods anyway, and we will see many benefits. Okay, the last question comes from Trevor. And Asin, maybe, I don't know if this ties into the inflammation answer you just gave, but he says, I've been feeling tired every day for 3 months. He has pre-existing conditions. So he has blood pressure. He has thyroid issues for years. He's been on medication for these, but he's just, even though his labs results remain the same, he's feeling worse and worse every day. Like his energy is a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. So he's wondering what he should do. What does this maybe mean? What he should do?
He should get a consultation. I think you should get on my calendar, Trevor. So just so you all know, when I answer these questions, I like to apply to all of us, all of you. If you have a thyroid issue, and you would know by if you do a sonogram or ultrasound or whatever medical exam you do, even an MRI, it would show that the thyroid is enlarged, or if you have nodules on the thyroid, or if you do the blood tests and any of those numbers for the thyroid, you see that they're too high or too low, what's it's telling you is that if you have any one of those categories, if you have, is that the thyroid is damaged. Now, this is what the thyroid is without getting into the specifics of it. The thyroid is the gland that is directly, the boss gland in our body is the pituitary gland. It's in the brain. It's the boss gland. And it's the gland that, create functionality for all the other glands in the human body. So the thyroid is like the executive gland. It's the one that taking instruction from the pituitary gland and distribute it to the other glands in the body. So anyone who has a thyroid issue, they're just miserable all the time. Sometimes they put on too much weight, sometimes they lose weight. Tiredness is one of the number one issues, because what the thyroid does, people, it tells the other glands what to do. It gives instruction to the pancreas, to the liver, for women, the ovary, the uterus, for men, the prostate. All those are glands. They're all attached to one network to that endocrine network in the human body. So when the thyroid goes bad, it is likely that all those other glands are going bad, because they're getting poor instructions, little instructions, or bad instructions, because the thyroid is not functioning well. And one of the clearest symptoms of thyroid issue is not even thyroid cancer, it's energy. You just have no energy. It doesn't matter what you eat, what you do, your exercise, it doesn't matter what you do, you have no energy. So that could be the reason why you're feeling the way you're feeling now. But I would like to see your labs to see if you have other inflammatory conditions in your body. And if you have a urinalysis as well, send it in. So send in your labs to us. You can email them in, or you can fax them in, and I'll take a look at them for you and give you, a perspective as to what could be happening in your body. And you all should do that, whether you have tiredness or not, because when you meet with me to go over your labs, I'm actually giving you guidance as to how to interact with your doctors, how to manage your doctors, how to ask the doctors the right questions that matter, as opposed to you walk into the doctor's office and they say what they say to you, and you walk out and you say, "Thank you, doctor," and you walk out and you have no idea what the doctor just said to you. You have no clue. And your life is on the line. Your health is on the line. And yes, I'm yelling at all of you because I know you all are doing it. So get me your labs. Let's go over it. and I'll mark it up for you, especially here in Bronxville. If you bring it in paper, I'll mark it up, and you can use your lab to manage your doctors so you can get the best medical support from your doctors. That's the whole point here. As
Okay.
opposed to you just going and say, yes, 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 and you have no idea what the doctor is saying because they're using all these medical terms that maybe they don't themselves completely understand, truly.
Well, it's great that he came to us because like that's really where NuSpecies thrives is when your labs and all your tests say everything is fine and you know you're not fine. The great news is your body does know what's wrong. And even when NuSpecies or Aston doesn't know what's wrong, your body does. And because we make our formulas as whole foods, raw, whole food plant ingredients, you're giving your body a buffet of nutrition and nutrition, it sounds like it feels like an understatement for what you get from plants. But
Mm-hmm.
you're giving your body a buffet to choose from. So if we don't know what's wrong, your doctors don't know what's wrong, your body does, and it will take what it can from our products and start to fix itself. All right, we are going to wrap up now. There's two quick questions that are left, and then we won't have time to take any more. So quickly, Andrea, was just a follow-up question. Is cold sensitivity a thyroid issue? Is that typically related to thyroid issues or?
It could be hormonal, which is thyroid, but if you have an ovary, it could be related back to that as well. So it could be blood circulation, it could be nerve issues, it could be 100 different causes. And that's why there are so many medical exams, because one medical exam just can't tell us what's going on in the body. And even with all the medical exams that are available, they can tell us all that's going on in our bodies, because the average adult has over 80 trillion cells, is because we have thousands of genes, and each gene accounts for something in the body, some body function, even if we don't know what those body functions are. So it could be many reasons why we have sensations: numbness, tingling, cold, feeling cold. It could be anemia because the body doesn't have enough blood. It doesn't have enough hemoglobin to carry the iron. The iron carry the oxygen. So I could sit here and speculate until, as my grandmother would say, until thy kingdom come, and we don't know what the answer really is.
Until the cows come home.
Yeah.
All right. Winston says he just did a testosterone lab reading and it's 287. Is that a normal reading?
Oh, could we go back to the prior question? Send me your labs, and if you send them in already, maybe we should meet again and go over them, because it could help to answer some of the questions being asked.
The cold sensitivity one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know, Andrea, if she has that issue or she was just sort of throwing that out there since we were talking about thyroid. But
Yeah.
if you think, yeah, Andrea, if you think that is a big issue for you and you're concerned, then definitely send in your information, your labs. Okay.
Okay.
Winston wants to know if 287 is a normal testosterone reading.
It's on the lower end. It's on the lower end. So even if it's not low, different labs have different measurements, and that's kind of funny. They use these to the different labs use different algorithm to determine what test results are, which is kind of confusing for a lot of people. Confusing to me too, because 1 week your A1C could be 6 because you use one lab, not going to say the name, and the next month or 3 months you use a different lab and your A1C is 8 or whatever, and you're going, what's going on here? So 287 is definitely on the lower end of testosterone. You want it to be a little higher than that to have the right kind of energy and the right kind of hormonal power in the body for whether man or woman. But this is for men. Women also have testosterone, but there's women's testosterone is way less, than men. But 240 plus, is a little low for a man.
Okay. And then quickly, Janet McKay was asking, what does it mean when your blood level is low, but you're not anemic? And if that's too long, because we are at the end of the show, we could save it for next.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. What does it mean when your blood level is low, but you're not anemic?
So the RBC can be low and you're not anemic. The hematocrit can be low and you're not anemic. Typically, iron attaches to hemoglobin. But if your hemoglobin is low, it is scientifically, biologically impossible for you not to have low iron if your hemoglobin is low. And low mean it's below 11 or below 10. It's biologically, scientifically impossible for humans. But
So
you
let's
can
see.
send your labs in and I'll be happy to take a look at it. But if your RBC could be low and your hematocrit could be low, your mean corpuscle hemoglobin, your mean corpuscle concentration, those are related back to the hemoglobin. So if those are low, you would be anemic as well. But send your labs in and I could take a look at it. And the question I would ask, what's your concern with iron? Because even if your blood levels are normal, you can still be anemic because you have other inherent conditions with your ovaries that could be causing that. So there are many reasons why a woman can be anemic. It's because their body's not using the iron. The iron could be there, but the body's not using it, to harbor or catch oxygen molecules. It's a lot of reasons. You see, as you can tell from these discussions, one never fits all, and the answer is never simple.
Yeah. I think if anything, people learn that from our Q&As. It's like, oh, okay, my question was actually like a false question in that it really can't be answered in that way, which, is an excellent start because it gives us more insight into what's going on and helps us make proper choices. All right. Last question is just a follow-up from Headley Oliver because he's the one who referred Trevor, who had the question about low energy, no matter what his labs say. And he was just saying, what can Trevor begin to take? I did respond to Headley, just letting him know you did say you feel like you need to see Trevor's labs and get more information. But also that he can never go wrong with at least just starting with L-Nu and the detox until
I
he can talk
agree.
to you. Okay. All right, Trevor. So Headley, let Trevor know that. Just get started with L-Nu and the detox. Like I said, it's a buffet of nutrition for the body to start to do what it needs to do. And then in the meantime, get him on Aston's calendar and have him email or fax over all of his labs and scans, etc. Our fax and phone number are all on our contact us page on the website. And it's also on our app.
Right. So when we say L-Nu or L-Nu1 for all of you, this goes for all of you as well. Just keep in mind that L-Nu1 or L-Nu9 or 25, L-25 support the whole body, holistically support the whole body. And so it doesn't matter what's going on in your body, even if you don't know or or the doctors don't know or the doctors know, the L-Nu1 supports rebuilding the whole body. And the detox support, the whole body as well. And we have now the new Genesis supports the whole body because it helps to support the genes and DNA. So we have the anti-inflammatory supports the whole body. So we have this whole portfolio of formulas at NuSpecies that support the whole body for the reason, Jill just stated. Sometimes no one knows what's wrong because the medical exams are inadequate to tell us what's wrong. And sometimes the doctors truly don't know. And what do? You don't do nothing. That's a double negative there. You don't do nothing. What you come to NuSpecies, we're going to put you on our holistic body support. We're going to support your whole body. And sometimes we have to allow your body to figure out what's wrong and fix it. And your body will figure it out and fix it. And no one knows what the body fixed because nobody knows what was wrong. And that's how our bodies work. It's just a great divine mystery, the human body.
If humans waited for us to figure out and understand every single thing about how our bodies work, we'd all be dead before that happens. So we got to take action anyway. All right. It is 10:55. We do have to end the stream. Thank you all so much for these amazing questions, and your back and forth is always so helpful. We have a lot of fun here with you on Saturday mornings. So I see that this weekend, at least here in New York, is supposed to be pretty nice. So I hope everybody enjoys that weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next Saturday at 10 a.m.
And I'm in Bronxville, and the upgraded formulas are still in discount. The new Genesis is still, for now, half off because I want all NuSpecies to be on it. And then all the upgraded formulas, the God formulas, the upgraded anti-inflammatory, the upgraded circulation formula, the Caveman. The Caveman is our best formula at NuSpecies, I think. Is still on discount. So all these higher price formulas, we want you on them to get better. So you can live longer. So take advantage of these discounts while we have them. And of course, the new Genesis is in stock again. And those of you who didn't get it, because it keeps running out, the third or fourth or fifth time it's run out. We have it in again this weekend. At least I have it in Bronxville. It's not in Almatis yet. So those of you who have been waiting for it, get your butts over here in Bronxville. I'm here until 6 p.m. today. So get over here and get your new Genesis. And if you're coming, bring your labs. I'll be happy to talk with you about what's going on. And if you have any questions, bring them with you as well, including family members. All right.
And just put the code up. If you use the code launch on the website, you can just automatically get that 50% off. So you don't have to call in or come to a store. Just keep in mind, we really shouldn't have New Genesis on the website because it doesn't have any ingredients on the labels. So we will be taking it down from the site pretty soon. So if you want the convenience of ordering online, go take care of that today and use the code launch to get 50% off. It comes in both 8-ounce and 16-ounce size, despite the fact that I only have a picture up of the 8-ounce. Just choose the right size from the drop down.
Here it's a 16.
There's a 16. All right, great. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. It was a wonderful, wonderful show today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.